The dollar bill was wrinkled, soft as cloth from too many hands. Maya Chin held it up to the streetlight outside Sacred Heart Shelter, watching Andrew Jackson's faded face flicker in the amber glow. $1.17. That was everything between her and absolute zero. She'd counted it 3 times while sitting on the church steps, her cardboard sign folded beside her, the October wind cutting through her donated coat like it wasn't even there. The man in the suit stumbled past her, and she almost didn't look up. Almost. But something about the way he moved, like his bones had forgotten how to hold him, made her pause. His suit was expensive. She could tell even in the dark, even with the dirt streaking the charcoal wool and the torn knee in his dress pants. Tom Ford, maybe. Brioni. The kind of suit that cost more than she used to make in a month back when she had months that meant something. He collapsed against the brick wall 15 feet away, sliding down until he sat in a heap, his head in his hands. Maya knew that posture. She'd worn it herself 6 months ago when she'd first realized the streets weren't temporary, that this was her life now. The posture of someone whose last thread had just snapped. She should walk away. That dollar was supposed to buy her coffee in the morning, something hot to wrap her frozen hands around before the long day of invisibility began again. But her feet were already moving, carrying her across those 15 feet like she was watching herself from somewhere outside her body. "Hey." Her voice came out rougher than she meant. "You okay?" He didn't look up. His hands were shaking. No, his whole body was shaking, a violent tremor that had nothing to do with the cold. "When did you last eat?" she asked. 3 days. His voice was a rasp, cultured even in its weakness. East Coast educated. The kind of voice that gave orders and expected them followed. "Maybe 4. I've lost track." Maya crouched down, every joint in her body protesting. 29 years old and she moved like she was 60. "There's a soup kitchen 2 blocks east. They serve until 9. "I can't." He finally looked up, and Maya sucked in a breath. His face was gaunt, aristocratic bones pressing through skin that had seen too much sun recently. But his eyes, gray, red-rimmed, desperate, held something she recognized, not just hunger, terror. "Someone's looking for you," she said. It wasn't a question. He flinched. "Everyone's looking for me, or they will be soon. He stopped himself, jaw clenching. "It doesn't matter who I am. I'm nobody now." Maya understood that feeling more than he could know. She pulled out her dollar, pressed it into his palm before she could think better of it. His hand was ice cold, his fingers elegant, even streaked with grime. "There's a bodega on 5th. They sell day-old sandwiches for $1. Tell them Maya sent you. Sometimes they throw in an apple." He stared at the bill like she'd handed him a live grenade. "I can't take this." "You just did." She stood, knees cracking. "Consider it a loan. You can pay me back when you figure out who you are again." "And if I never do?" Maya smiled without humor. "Then we're even, because neither did I." She walked away before he could argue, before she could think about the coffee she wouldn't have tomorrow, before the small voice in her head could start screaming about stupid decisions and wasted mercy. Behind her, she heard him call out, "Wait, your name, Maya, right? But she was already gone, disappearing into the shadow between streetlights, just another ghost in a city full of them. She didn't hear him finish. "I'm James Hartwell, and that dollar just saved my life." 3 weeks earlier, James Hartwell's office occupied the entire 52nd floor of the Hartwell Tower in downtown Manhattan. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the city like a kingdom, which is exactly what it was. His kingdom. Built from nothing after his father's bankruptcy, reconstructed with blood and brilliant strategy until Hartwell Industries became synonymous with American manufacturing's resurrection. But kingdoms fall. "Sign the papers, James." Victoria stood by the window, backlit by the morning sun, looking like an avenging angel in white Chanel. His ex-wife, his former partner, his current nightmare. "Make this easy." Easy? James didn't look up from the contract on his desk. The words swam before his eyes. Transfer of majority shares, voluntary dissolution of CEO position. You're stealing my company, Victoria. There's nothing easy about that. I'm saving it from your incompetence. She turned, and the light caught her face, still beautiful at 38, still the woman he'd loved once before he learned what kind of person lurked behind that perfect facade. The Bronson deal is collapsing because you're too ethical to play the game. The board agrees with me. You've become a liability. The Bronson deal involves child labor in their Indonesian plants.
I won't. You won't compromise. You won't adapt. You're running a 21st century company with 20th century morals. She moved closer, predatory. Sign willingly, and you keep your reputation. Fight me, and I'll destroy you. I have evidence of insider trading, falsified safety reports, a paper trail that leads directly to you. James's blood ran cold. I never. No. But someone did. Someone with access to your accounts, your passwords, your signature. She smiled. Sign by Friday, or the SEC gets an anonymous tip Monday morning. Your choice. Step down quietly or go to prison. He'd wanted to call her bluff. He'd wanted to fight. But then Marcus Tang, his head of security, had pulled him aside after Victoria left. Marcus, who he trusted for 8 years. Marcus, whose eyes wouldn't meet James when he said, "She's not bluffing. I've seen the evidence. It's airtight. You'll go to prison if this goes public. You're supposed to protect me. I am protecting you by telling you to sign." That's when James started to understand. The betrayal went deeper than Victoria. It was Marcus, his CFO Jennifer Chen, maybe others. How many people on his payroll had been bought? He'd signed the papers that afternoon with shaking hands. By Thursday, the press release went out. James Hartwell steps down amid health concerns. By Friday, his accounts were frozen pending an internal audit. By Saturday, his phone was disconnected, his penthouse access revoked, his daughter Lucia unreachable at her boarding school in Connecticut. By Sunday, he was on the streets with nothing but the suit on his back and the growing certainty that if he went to the authorities, Victoria would simply activate whatever trap she'd built. The evidence would surface. He'd be arrested before he could speak, so he'd run. For 3 weeks, he'd moved through the city like a ghost, sleeping in parks, avoiding cameras, trying to understand how his life had detonated so completely, trying to figure out who he could trust, coming empty. Until a homeless woman with sad eyes and careful hands had given him her last dollar. Maya stood in line at Sacred Heart's morning distribution, her stomach eating itself. She'd regretted giving away that dollar approximately 4,000 times since last night, but she was trying not to be bitter about it. Mercy was its own reward, or whatever Father Paulo always said. The smell of oatmeal and burnt coffee drifted from the kitchen, making her dizzy. "You look like hell," Sketch said behind her. Derek Morrison, everyone called him Sketch because of the charcoal drawings he sold on the pier, was the closest thing she had to a friend out here. 51, marine tattoos fading on his forearms, eyes that had seen too much in Fallujah and remembered all of it. Didn't sleep. Nightmares again? No, just... She thought about the man in the suit, those desperate gray eyes. I did something stupid. Stupid how? But before she could answer, Father Paulo appeared at the serving window, his weathered face creased with concern. "Maya, can I see you after breakfast?" Her stomach dropped. "Did I do something wrong?" "No, child. Someone's asking for you." The man in the suit looked different in daylight, cleaned up. He was sitting in Father Paulo's cramped office, wearing donated jeans and a Fordham sweatshirt that almost fit, his dark hair wet from the showers. Without the grime and desperation, Maya could see the person he'd been before. Handsome, commanding, the kind of man who occupied space with natural authority. He stood when she entered, and the movement was pure grace despite his obvious hunger.
Maya. Her name in his mouth sounded like something precious. Thank you for meeting me. I wanted to return this. He held out $2. With interest. She didn't take it. Where did you get money? I had a cufflink in my pocket. Pawned it this morning. He gestured to the chair across from Father Paulo's desk. Please, sit. I owe you an explanation. You don't owe me anything. I owe you everything. He waited until she sat before lowering himself carefully into his own chair, like movement hurt. That dollar, you don't understand what it meant. I was ready to. I had decided that night was my last night. I was going to walk to the bridge. Maya's throat closed. She knew that feeling too. But then, you gave me that dollar. Not because you had to, not because you knew who I was, just because I was hungry, and you had something to share. His voice cracked. Do you understand how long it's been since someone did something for me without wanting something in return? I don't know who you are, Maya said quietly. James Hartwell. He watched her face for recognition, found none, and something like relief crossed his features. I used to be someone. I ran a company, had a life. 3 weeks ago, that life ended. I can't explain all of it, not yet. It's not safe, but I need to repay what you did for me.
I need to do something good, something that reminds me I'm still human. I don't need charity. It's not charity. It's... He leaned forward, intensity burning in those gray eyes. I have nothing right now. No money, no home, no way to access anything I once had. But I have skills, knowledge. I can help you. Help me do what? Whatever you need. I worked in manufacturing, logistics, strategy. I can... He stopped, studied her face. What did you do? Before? The question landed like a punch. No one on the streets asked about before. Before was the forbidden country, the place you couldn't return to. I ran an art gallery, Maya heard herself say, in Chelsea. Contemporary Asian artists, mostly. It was small but growing. I was going to marry my business partner. We had plans. What happened? He embezzled, blamed it on me. By the time I understood what was happening, I was broke, blacklisted, and facing criminal charges I couldn't afford to fight. The words came out flat, emotionless. She told this story in her head so many times it had lost meaning. I took a plea deal to keep him out of prison, 18 months probation, but my reputation was destroyed. Couldn't get work, couldn't pay rent, couldn't... She stopped. It doesn't matter now. James was very still. You took the fall for someone you loved, someone I thought I loved, and you gave me your last dollar. He shook his head slowly. Maya Chen, you're either the kindest person I've ever met or the most self-destructive. Maybe both. She stood to leave. Keep your $2. Buy yourself 3 more meals. I'm fine. Wait. He stood too, and suddenly they were very close in the small office. Close enough that she could smell the shelter soap on his skin, see the silver threaded through his dark hair. Let me buy you breakfast, a real breakfast. Eggs, coffee, toast. There's a diner 2 blocks from here. Please, it's the least I can do. Maya should have said no, should have recognized the danger of connection, of letting someone see her as more than just a ghost. But she was so hungry, and his eyes were kind. Okay, she said, 1 breakfast. It was the second decision that would change everything. The diner was called Rosie's, a grease trap relic that somehow survived in a neighborhood of artisan coffee shops and organic juice bars. James ordered them both the trucker special, eggs, bacon, hash browns, toast, coffee, and Maya tried not to cry when the plates arrived. Eat, James said gently. Please. She did. She ate like she was dying because part of her had been. Real food, hot and plentiful, tasted like hope. James picked at his own plate, but he watched her with something like satisfaction. You saved my life, he said after she'd cleared half her plate. I need you to understand that. I was going to the bridge. I had it all planned. But your dollar, your kindness, it reminded me that there's still good in the world, that maybe I'm not ready to give up yet. Maya set down her fork. What happened to you? Really? He was quiet for a long moment, weighing something. Finally, someone I trusted betrayed me, took everything I built, set me up to take the fall for crimes I didn't commit. If I come forward, if I try to fight, I go to prison. If I stay hidden, maybe I can figure out how to prove the truth. But I need time. I need to be invisible. You picked a good place for that, Maya said. Nobody sees us. Us? The homeless. We're furniture, background noise. You could stand on Fifth Avenue and scream, and people would step around you like you were a puddle. James flinched. I'm learning that. So what's your plan? Stay invisible forever? No. There's someone I need to protect, someone they're using against me. Once I know she's safe, I can start fighting back. He paused. My daughter, Lucia. She's 16, boarding school in Connecticut. They cut off my access to her, but I need to know she's okay. Maya heard the ache in his voice. You must miss her. Every second. His hands clenched on the table. She's the only good thing I ever made. And I can't even call her, can't let her know I'm alive, because if they know I've contacted her, they'll... He stopped, jaw working. I need to be smart, patient, but God, it's killing me. Maya understood that kind of love, that fierce protective instinct. She'd felt it once for Marcus, before she'd learned what he really was. So you're just, what, living on the streets until you figure something out? I'm gathering information, watching, learning who I can trust. He met her eyes, and maybe trying to do something decent in the meantime. Maya, let me help you. You said you ran a gallery. You understand business, art, value. I can't access my resources right now, but I know people. I know systems. Let me help you get back on your feet. Why? Because you helped me. Because I need to believe there's still a way to build something good from wreckage. He leaned forward. And because I think maybe we're both invisible right now. Maybe that's useful.
Maybe we can help each other. Maya should have walked away, should have known better than to trust a man with secrets and expensive problems. But she was so tired of being alone. What did you have in mind? She asked. James smiled for the first time since she'd met him, and it transformed his face completely. How are you with art forgery? I'm not talking about illegal forgery, James clarified quickly, seeing Maya's expression. I mean reproduction, legal copies of classic works for corporate lobbies, hotel chains, design firms. There's a massive market for it, and the margins are incredible if you know the right suppliers. They were walking along the river now, noon sun breaking through October clouds. Maya's stomach was full for the first time in months, and the world felt slightly less sharp at the edges. I don't have supplies, she said. I don't have space. I don't have a business license or insurance or... Details. James waved a hand. I can't access my money, but I can access knowledge. I know which buildings have empty units. I know which suppliers will work on consignment. I know galleries that buy reproductions for their commercial clients but don't advertise it. He stopped, turned to face her. You have talent. I have connections and strategy. We split profits 50-50 until you're stable. Then you take it over completely and I walk away. Why would you do that? Because I need a project, something that reminds me I'm still good at something besides losing everything. His voice went rough. And because watching you work will give me an excuse to be in one place regularly, to watch people, gather information. I need to understand who's working for Victoria, who might be persuaded to help me. An art studio gives me cover. Maya studied him. You're using me. I'm using the situation, but I'm also genuinely trying to help you. Those things aren't mutually exclusive. They weren't. Maya knew that. But there was something else here, something she couldn't quite name. James Hartwell wasn't just a man down on his luck. He was dangerous in ways she didn't fully understand yet. Getting involved with him could destroy what little remained of her life. But then again, what did she have left to lose? "I'll think about it," she said. "Think fast. I found a space this morning, empty storefront in Brooklyn, sublet available immediately under the table. We could be operational in a week." "With what money?" James grinned, and it was sharp, feral. "My cufflink pawned for $400. I told you it would cover 3 meals. I lied. It was vintage Cartier. We have seed money." Despite herself, Maya laughed. "You're insane." "Probably, but I'm also right. You're an artist. I'm a strategist. Let's build something." She should say no, should walk away, back to the shelter, back to her careful routine of survival and nothing more. But Maya had been surviving for 6 months, and she was so damn tired of just surviving. "One condition," she said. "You tell me everything. Whatever trouble you're in, whatever you're running from, I need to know what I'm getting into." James hesitated, calculation flickering behind his eyes. Then agreed. "But not here. Too exposed. Tonight, at the shelter, Father Paulo's office, I'll tell you everything. Promise? On my daughter's life." It should have reassured her. Instead, it made Maya's skin prickle with warning. Men who swore on their children's lives were either very honest or very dangerous. She suspected James Hartwell might be both. That evening, Victoria Ashford stood in James' old office, her office now, and watched the sun set over Manhattan. Everything she'd worked for, finally hers. Hartwell Industries, stripped of James's sentimental stupidity, would become what it should have been all along: ruthless, efficient, profitable. The transfer is complete. Marcus Tang stood in the doorway, uncomfortable in his new role as head of security. He'd been loyal to James for 8 years. Victoria had bought that loyalty in 3 weeks with a combination of money and carefully revealed evidence that James was not the man Marcus thought he was. Evidence she'd fabricated, of course, but Marcus didn't know that. "And James?" Victoria asked without turning. "Still disappeared. No credit card activity, no phone, no sightings. Either he's very good at hiding or—" "He's not dead," Victoria said sharply. "I'd know if he was dead." "How?" "Because I'd feel it," she thought, but didn't say. Because despite everything, despite the divorce and the betrayal and the war between them, James Hartwell was still the only man who'd ever seen her completely and loved her anyway. Until he'd stopped loving her. Until he chose his precious ethics over her, over their daughter, over everything they could have built together without moral constraints. She'd offered him everything: power, money, freedom, and he chose integrity instead. So she took integrity from him, made him look like a criminal, made him run like a coward. And soon, when she'd fully consolidated control, she'd reveal his suicide, the note she'd forged, the tragic story of a man broken by his own corruption. James Hartwell would become a cautionary tale, and she'd never have to see the disappointment in his eyes again. "Keep looking," she told Marcus, "and make sure Lucia stays under control. The girl's too smart for her own good. She thinks her father's dead. Good. Keep it that way." After Marcus left, Victoria pulled out her phone and scrolled to an encrypted message from 3 weeks ago. "Package delivered. Target contained." The target wasn't James. It was what James knew. The real reason she'd destroyed him had nothing to do with business philosophy or moral differences. James had discovered what Victoria had done 5 years ago. The shortcut she'd taken, the accident she'd caused, the man who died because of her negligence, correction, her intentional action during the merger with Bronson Industries. That man's name was Robert Chen, and his daughter, Maya Chen, had been quietly bankrupted and blacklisted by Victoria's careful machinations 2 years later, just to ensure no one connected the dots. But somehow, James had started connecting them anyway,
So he had to go, before he could prove anything, before he could take her down with him. Victoria looked at her reflection in the darkening window, polished, perfect, powerful, and smiled. James thought he was hunting her, but she'd been hunting him all along. And somewhere in this city, invisible and hunted, he was probably just starting to realize how much danger he was really in. "Your ex-wife killed someone?" Maya stared at James across Father Paulo's desk, the words not quite processing. They'd been talking for an hour, James revealing everything, the conspiracy, the evidence, the betrayal, and now this. 5 years ago, James continued, his voice hollow, Robert Chen, an engineer who worked for Bronson Industries. Victoria was negotiating the merger, pushing for speed, cutting corners on safety inspections. Robert discovered that one of their Indonesian plants was using child labor in dangerous conditions. He was going public, blow the whistle. Victoria, he swallowed hard. She arranged an accident, made it look like equipment failure. Robert died, and the whistle went silent. Maya's hands had gone numb. Robert Chen. Yes, I only found out about it 2 months ago. Started investigating, tracing payments, finding witnesses. I was going to take it to the authorities when Robert Chen was my father. James's face went white. What? My father? Robert Chen. He died 5 years ago in an industrial accident in Indonesia. Maya's voice sounded distant, like it was coming from underwater. He was an... She stopped, pieces falling into place in her head like a terrible jigsaw. You're saying he was murdered? Maya, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know you were. How do I know you're telling the truth? She stood abruptly, the chair scraping back. How do I know you're not part of this, that you didn't... I loved your father. Father Paulo's voice cut through the room. He'd been silent until now, listening from his spot by the window. Not personally. But James came to me 6 weeks ago, before everything fell apart. He wanted spiritual guidance on what to do with information that would destroy someone he'd once loved. He told me about Robert Chen, about Victoria, about the choice he was facing. Maya turned to the priest, betrayed. You knew? I knew James was trying to do the right thing. I didn't know you were Robert Chen's daughter until just now. Father Paulo moved closer, his weathered face gentle. Maya, child, I've known you for 6 months. I've watched you give away your last dollar, help others who have even less, carry grace like a torch in darkness. You are your father's daughter, and James is trying to finish what your father started. By hiding? By running away? By staying alive long enough to bring Victoria down the right way. James stood too, careful to keep distance between them. Maya, if I go to the authorities now, Victoria will release the evidence she's fabricated. I'll go to prison. Your father's death will remain an accident. She wins. But if I can find the real proof, the paper trail, the witnesses, the truth, I can expose her. I can give your father justice. And what does that have to do with me? With art reproductions and... Maya's laugh was bitter. Oh my God, you knew who I was. From the beginning. You knew when I gave you that dollar. No. James shook his head vehemently. I swear I didn't. Not until just now when you said your father's name. I knew about Robert Chen, about his death, about his family being destroyed afterward. But I didn't know you. We've never met, Maya. Look at me. He waited until she met his eyes. I've been investigating Victoria for 2 months.
I've seen hundreds of names, dozens of connections, but I never saw a photo of Robert's daughter. I never knew what you looked like. I didn't know you ran a gallery. I didn't know about your embezzlement case or your ex-fiancé or any of it until you told me. How convenient. It's not convenience. It's fate, or God, or justice. His voice cracked. Maya, your father died because of my ex-wife's corruption. You lost everything because Victoria destroyed you to cover her tracks. And then somehow, impossibly, you were the one who saved my life with your last dollar. Don't you see? We're supposed to help each other. We're supposed to... Stop. Maya's head was spinning. I need to think. I need... She looked at Father Paulo. Is he telling the truth? As far as I know, yes. That's not good enough. I know. Maya turned back to James. You want me to help you take down the woman who killed my father? Yes. By painting reproductions and helping you gather information? Yes. And you expect me to trust you? No. James's expression was raw, honest. I expect you to use me. Work with me until you know for sure whether I'm telling the truth. If I'm lying, if I'm part of what destroyed your father, then expose me, turn me in. I deserve it. But if I'm telling the truth, and I am, then help me make Victoria pay for what she did. Maya wanted to scream, wanted to run, wanted to rewind time to before she'd given this man her dollar, before she'd learned that the universe was even crueler than she thought. But another part of her, the part that was her father's daughter, the part that had survived 6 months on the streets and still gave away her last dollar to a stranger, that part recognized truth when she heard it. Show me proof, she said. Everything you have, every document, every witness, every connection. If I help you, it's not because I trust you. It's because I want my father's murderer to pay. James nodded slowly. Okay, but Maya, there's something else you need to know. What? Your ex-fiancé, Marcus Tang. He works for me. Or he used to. He's the one who betrayed me to Victoria. James watched her face. He's also the one who embezzled from your gallery and blamed it on you. The world tilted. No, Maya whispered. Marcus worked at... He was in security. He was my head of security. He met you while on assignment at a corporate event where your gallery was featured. Victoria sent him to get close to you, to make sure you stayed destroyed and quiet after your father died. The embezzlement wasn't random. It was planned, orchestrated. Another piece of Victoria's cleanup. Maya's knees gave out. She sat down hard on the floor, her back against Father Paulo's desk, and everything she thought she'd understood about the last 2 years dissolved into lies. I'm sorry, James said, and he sounded like he meant it. I'm so sorry. But sorry couldn't fix what was broken. Sorry couldn't bring her father back. Sorry couldn't erase 6 months of living in hell. Maya closed her eyes and felt something shift inside her chest, not breaking, but hardening, crystallizing into something sharp and purposeful. I'll help you, she said, but not for you, for my father. And when this is over, if you've lied to me about any of it, I'll destroy you myself. Fair enough, James said. And then he made the mistake of holding out his hand to help her up. Because when Maya took it, when their fingers touched and that current of recognition passed between them, they both knew this was more than an alliance. This was going to be war. And neither of them was ready for what it would cost. 3 days later. The storefront in Brooklyn wasn't much, 1,200 square feet of water-stained walls and cracked linoleum, but it had good northern light and enough space for an easel. Maya stood in the center of the empty room, with a box of supplies James had acquired through methods she'd decided not to question. It's perfect, she lied. James saw through it immediately. It's terrible, but it's a start. He was wearing donated clothes again, but somehow he made thrift store denim look intentional. I contacted 3 galleries this morning using a burner phone. Told them I had a source for high-quality reproductions at competitive prices. 2 are interested. Under what name? Chin Studios. He watched her reaction. Is that okay? It should have felt exploitative. Instead, it felt like resurrection. Her father's name brought back to life. Her name reclaimed. It's okay. Good. Because our first commission arrives tomorrow. A dozen reproductions of Hiroshiga's wave prints. Client wants them in 2 weeks. 2 weeks? Maya's heart kicked. That's not enough time for...
It's plenty of time for you. I've seen your sketches. He gestured to the cardboard portfolio she'd carried with her for 6 months, the one possession she'd never sold. You're exceptional, Maya. This is going to work. She wanted to believe him. Almost did. Then her phone, the ancient prepaid flip phone she'd gotten at the shelter, buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Stop looking or Lucia dies." The blood drained from Maya's face. She showed James the screen. His expression went dead calm, which was somehow more terrifying than panic. "She knows I'm still looking. She knows I'm—" He grabbed Maya's shoulders. "We need to move faster. If Victoria knows I'm investigating, if she's threatening Lucia, then we're out of time." "What do we do?" "We split up. You focus on the reproductions, establish the business, create the cover. I need to get to Connecticut, see my daughter, make sure she's safe." "That's insane. If Victoria's watching her, if she has people there, I don't have a choice." James's hands tightened. "She's my daughter, Maya. I've been invisible for 3 weeks, but if Victoria's threatening her, then the invisibility is already broken. I have to go." Maya understood, would have done the same. "Okay, but you can't go alone. You need backup." "I'm not putting you in more danger." Too late. She pulled away, started pacing. "If Victoria knows you're active, she might know about me too. Might know we're working together. We need information. We need—" She stopped. "Sketch. Who?" "Derek Morrison. Everyone calls him Sketch. He's former Marine Recon. He has contacts, skills. He owes me a favor." "A homeless veteran owes you a favor?" "I helped him get VA benefits reinstated last month, navigated the bureaucracy. He said if I ever needed anything." Maya met James's eyes. "Let me ask him. If he says yes, you have backup. If he says no, we figure something else out." James looked like he wanted to argue. Instead, he just nodded. "Okay, ask him." But they both knew this was the moment everything changed. They weren't hiding anymore. They were fighting back. And in a penthouse office in Manhattan, Victoria Ashford was watching a computer screen that showed exactly where a burner phone signal had originated from. A storefront in Brooklyn registered under the name Chen Studios. She picked up her own phone, dialed a number she'd hoped never to use. "It's me," she said when the line connected. "I need you to handle a problem. 2 problems, actually." "Names?" "James Hartwell and Maya Chen." A pause. "I thought Hartwell was already contained." "He was, but he's adapting, becoming dangerous." Victoria's voice went cold. "Make them disappear. Permanently this time. And make sure it looks like an accident." "Understood." "Time frame? 72 hours. Before they can do any more damage." Victoria ended the call and looked out at the city she controlled. She'd given James a chance to disappear quietly, to accept his exile. But if he was going to keep fighting, keep investigating, keep threatening everything she'd built, then she'd simply have to kill him. And the homeless woman who'd made the mistake of showing him mercy? She was already dead. She just didn't know it yet. Sketch said yes. "You helped me get my benefits back, Derek," Sketch Morrison said, his weathered face serious in the yellow glow of the streetlight outside Sacred Heart. "That was the first time in 3 years anyone treated me like I was still human, still worth something. So yeah, I'll help you extract someone from a fancy boarding school. I've done worse for better reasons." Maya felt something in her chest loosen. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet. We haven't died trying." He turned to James, assessing him with the flat gaze of someone who'd seen combat. "You're the suit she gave her dollar to." "Yes? You worth it?" James didn't flinch. "Ask me again in 3 days." Sketch grinned, all teeth. "Fair enough." "So, Connecticut boarding school extraction. When do we move?" "Tomorrow night," James said. "Visiting hours end at 8. Faculty do rounds at 9. We have a 1-hour window before security lockdown at 10. And you know this how? I designed the security system 3 years ago when Lucia first enrolled." James's smile was grim. I know every camera, every patrol route, every blind spot. I built them in case I ever needed to get her out in an emergency. Smart. Paranoid. But it turns out paranoia pays dividends. They spent the next hour planning, James sketching building layouts on notebook paper, Sketch adding tactical notes about approach vectors and fallback positions. Maya watched them work, these two broken men finding competence in crisis, and felt something like hope bloom in her chest. Maybe they could do this. Her phone buzzed again. Another text. I'm watching her sleep. Sweet dreams. Attached was a photo. Lucia Hartwell in her dorm room bed, taken from outside her window. James went utterly still. Then he was moving, grabbing his jacket, heading for the door. James, wait! Maya caught his arm. You can't just charge in there. If Victoria has people watching, Lucia, if they're waiting for you to... I don't care. His voice was deadly calm. She sent me a photo of my daughter sleeping. That's not a warning.
That's a declaration. We're out of time. Which is exactly why we need to be smart. Sketch stepped between them and the door. You go in hot, you get your daughter killed. You get yourself killed. You get all of us killed. We stick to the plan. Tomorrow night. Controlled extraction. Anything else is suicide. She's sending me photos of, I know, and it's designed to make you do exactly what you're doing. React instead of think. Sketch's voice gentled slightly. I had a daughter once, Fallujah. IED took her and my wife while I was deployed. I know what you're feeling, but you can't save her if you're dead. James sagged against the wall, all the fight draining out of him. What if something happens between now and tomorrow night? Then we adapt, but we don't hand Victoria what she wants by being stupid. Sketch looked at Maya. You're staying here, right? Base camp? Maya started to protest, but James cut her off. No, Maya comes with us. If Victoria knows about her, knows we're working together, then she's not safe here either. We all go. We get Lucia, we disappear together until we have enough evidence to fight back. That's not what we agreed, Maya said. I'm supposed to establish the business, create the cover. The cover's blown. The text came to your phone, Maya. Victoria has your number. She knows where you are. You're not safe here. He was right. She hated that he was right. Fine, she said. But we do this smart. We get Lucia out, we find somewhere safe, and then we finish what my father started. We take Victoria down. Agreed, James said. Sketch nodded. Agreed. They didn't shake on it, didn't make speeches. They just stood there in the dark outside a homeless shelter, three broken people planning something impossible, and hoped that determination would be enough. It wouldn't be, but they didn't know that yet. They're planning something. Marcus Tang stood in Victoria's office, uncomfortable as always when delivering news she wouldn't like. The surveillance team photographed Chen and Hartwell together in Brooklyn 3 times in the last 2 days. They've been joined by a third individual, Derek Morrison, former Marine, currently homeless, combat veteran with specialized training. Victoria's expression didn't change. And I think they're planning to extract Lucia. Let them. Marcus blinked. Sorry? Let them try. Victoria turned from her window, and her smile was sharp enough to cut. They think they're being clever, gathering allies, making plans. But every move they make gives us more evidence of James's mental breakdown, his dangerous instability. A homeless vagrant kidnapping his own daughter with help from other homeless people? That's not a rescue. That's a tragedy waiting to happen. You want them to succeed? I want them to try. And then I want them to fail spectacularly. In public. She moved to her desk, pulled up a file on her computer. The board meeting is in 4 days. They're voting on whether to make my CEO position permanent. If James resurfaces before then, looking unstable, making wild accusations, trying to rescue Lucia from a perfectly good school, it solidifies my position completely. Marcus felt sick. You're using your own daughter as bait. I'm protecting my daughter from a father who's having a psychotic break. Victoria's voice hardened. And I'm protecting this company from a man who would destroy it with his antiquated ethics. James needs to be stopped, Marcus, permanently. And if that means letting him hang himself publicly first, so be it. And if he succeeds, if he gets Lucia out, then we have him on kidnapping charges. Either way, he's finished. She paused. But Marcus, make sure he doesn't actually leave the state with her. I want this contained in Connecticut. Controlled chaos. How? By making sure someone follows them. Someone who can intervene at exactly the right moment to maximize damage to James's credibility. Victoria smiled. I'm thinking a live stream, social media, maybe a helpful bystander with a phone who just happens to capture a crazed homeless man trying to abduct a teenage girl from her school. Can you imagine how that would play? Marcus could, and it made him hate himself a little more. I'll arrange it, he said. Good. And, Marcus, Victoria's eyes were cold. After this is over, after James is discredited and arrested and out of the way permanently, I'll make sure you're rewarded for your loyalty. Everything I promised, the promotion, the money, the security, you'll have it all. Thank you. But as Marcus left her office, he thought about James Hartwell, the man he'd worked for, respected, even liked, and wondered when exactly he'd become the villain in this story, and whether there was any way to still be a hero. Connecticut, 8:47 p.m. The Bradford Academy for Girls sat on 200 acres of manicured Connecticut countryside, looking like something out of a Gothic novel.
James, Maya, and Sketch crouched in the tree line behind the tennis courts, watching the lights of the senior dorm. "Third window, second floor," James whispered. "That's Lucia's room." "Security patrol just passed," Sketch murmured, checking his watch. "We have 11 minutes before they loop back. Cameras have a 90-second gap in coverage when they rotate. We move during that gap. And if someone sees us, we're parents visiting a student. James is obvious. Maya pretends to be the stepmom. I'm your driver." Sketch's grin was feral. "We're entitled rich people. No one questions entitled rich people." Except James didn't look entitled anymore. He looked haunted, desperate, dangerous, exactly like someone who would kidnap his own daughter. Maya touched his arm. "You okay? I haven't seen her in 3 weeks. She thinks I abandoned her. Thinks I'm—" His voice cracked. "What if she doesn't want to come with me? Then we show her the texts, the threats, the truth." Maya squeezed his hand. "She's your daughter, James. She'll understand." But Maya wasn't sure she believed that. 16-year-olds didn't always understand complicated truths. And from Lucia's perspective, her father had disappeared without explanation, leaving her alone with a mother who was probably spinning this as James's abandonment. "Camera gap in 30 seconds, Sketch said. "Get ready." They moved. James first, crossing the open ground between trees and building like a ghost. Maya followed, her heart hammering, every instinct screaming that this was wrong, too exposed, too dangerous. Sketch brought up the rear, moving with the fluid efficiency of someone who'd done infiltrations before. They made it to the building's shadow just as the camera rotated back. "Third window," James breathed. And then he was climbing the old ivy trellis like he'd done it 1,000 times before. Maybe he had. Maybe he'd practiced this exact scenario, this emergency extraction, preparing for a disaster he'd hoped would never come. Maya watched him reach the window, tap on the glass softly. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the curtain moved and a girl's face appeared. Dark hair, her father's gray eyes, too old for 16 and too young for what she'd been through. Lucia's mouth opened in a silent gasp. She unlocked the window. "Dad?" Lucia Hartwell stared at her father like he was a ghost, which in a way he was. James climbed through her window, and Maya saw his hand shaking as he reached for his daughter. "Lucia, sweetheart, I'm so sorry. I know you don't understand. I know this looks—" She hit him. A closed fist punch to his chest that held 6 months of rage and abandonment and fear. You disappeared. You left me alone with her. You let everyone think you were. Tears streaked her face. Where the hell have you been? Surviving, hiding. Your mother. James caught Lucia's hands before she could hit him again. Listen to me. I know what she told you. I know how this looks. But I didn't abandon you. I was framed, set up. If I hadn't disappeared, I would have gone to prison. So you just left me? I thought I was protecting you. I thought if I stayed away, if I made myself invisible, she wouldn't use you against me. But I was wrong. He pulled out his phone, showed her the texts. She's threatening you now, using you as leverage. You're not safe here, Lucia. We need to go. Lucia stared at the messages, her face going pale. She sent these? Or someone working for her? Yes. And the photo of me sleeping? Yes. Lucia was quiet for a long moment, something shifting behind her eyes. Then, I knew she was lying, about everything, about you. She said you'd had a breakdown, that you'd stolen money and run away. But I knew you wouldn't do that. Her voice broke. But I didn't know where you were. Didn't know if you were even alive. I'm alive. I'm here. And I need you to trust me one more time. James gestured to the window. We have maybe 3 minutes before security makes another round. Maya and Sketch are waiting outside. We're going to get you somewhere safe, and then I'm going to prove what your mother did. But I need you to come with me now. Lucia looked at Maya in the window, then back at her father. Who's Maya? Someone who gave me $1 when I had nothing. Someone whose father your mother killed. James's voice went hard. I'll explain everything, I promise, but right now we need to move. Okay? Lucia grabbed a backpack, started shoving clothes and a laptop inside. Okay, I'm coming. But Dad, when this is over, when Mom pays for what she did, you and I are having a very long conversation about communication and trust and not treating your daughter like a chess piece. Despite everything, James smiled. Deal. They were almost to the window when the door opened behind them. Victoria stood in the doorway, flanked by 2 security guards and holding a phone that was clearly recording. Well, she said, her voice dripping false concern. This looks exactly like what I told everyone it was. James, sweetheart, you're not well. Let's get you some help before you hurt someone. James froze. Lucia moved in front of her father, protective. Get out, Mom. Baby, I know you're confused. Your father is sick. He's not himself. He's convinced himself I'm some kind of villain, when really I'm just trying to save it. Lucia's voice was cold. I know about Robert Chen. I know about the Indonesian plant. I know what you did. Victoria's mask slipped for just a second, revealing something sharp and deadly underneath. Then it was back, all maternal concern and gentle sadness. I don't know what your father's told you, but he didn't tell me anything. I figured it out myself. Lucia pulled out her own phone. I've been investigating for weeks, ever since Dad disappeared. I'm not stupid, Mom. I know how to access company files, how to trace money, how to find deleted emails. She held up the phone. I have everything. Every payment you made to cover up Robert Chen's death. Every falsified safety report. Every piece of evidence Dad was gathering. I copied it all before you could delete it. The room went very still. Victoria's eyes narrowed. You're bluffing. Try me. Lucia's hands were steady, even though Maya could see they wanted to shake. I sent copies to 3 different journalists to be released automatically if I don't check in every 24 hours. You can't delete them, you can't stop them, and if you try to hurt Dad, if you try to hurt me or anyone helping him, the truth comes out. You wouldn't. But Victoria's voice had lost its certainty. I'm your daughter, Lucia said softly. Of course I would. I learned from the best. For a long moment, Victoria just stared at the daughter she'd underestimated so completely. Then she laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. Fine, you win this round. Take your father,
Take your evidence, take everything. But Lucia, this isn't over. You think you're protecting him, but you're destroying yourself. That company is your inheritance, your future. Walk away now, and you lose everything. I already lost everything when you became someone I couldn't recognize. Lucia grabbed James's hand. Come on, Dad, let's go. They went through the window. James, then Lucia, then Maya following, leaving Victoria standing in that dorm room with her security guards and her recording phone, and the sudden, shattering realization that she just lost. But Victoria Ashford hadn't built an empire by accepting loss. As she watched them disappear into the darkness, she made a call. It's me. They have evidence. The daughter has been copying files. We need to move to Plan B, which is permanent solutions. No more warnings, no more games. Victoria's voice went flat, emotionless. Kill them all. Make it look like an accident. And do it tonight. They drove south in Sketch's ancient Civic, nobody speaking, tension thick as smoke. Lucia sat in the back between her father and Maya, her laptop open, fingers flying over keys. What are you doing? Maya asked. Uploading everything to a secure server. Dad's evidence, my files, everything we have on Mom. Lucia didn't look up. If she's smart, and she is, she's already mobilizing to stop us. We need redundancy, multiple copies, multiple locations. James stared at his daughter like he'd never seen her before. When did you become so paranoid? I learned from you. Lucia's smile was sad. You always said trust but verify. Prepare for the worst. Have contingency plans. She finally met his eyes. I knew something was wrong when you disappeared. Knew Mom was lying. So I started digging. Found your investigation notes hidden in the company server. Started tracing the same paths you did. That was dangerous. So was doing nothing. Lucia's voice hardened. Robert Chen had a daughter, Dad, Maya. She lost everything because of Mom's cleanup. I couldn't just sit there and let that stand. Maya's throat tightened. You knew about me? I knew Robert Chen had a daughter who'd been destroyed to keep her quiet. I didn't know you were. Lucia gestured between Maya and James. This, whatever this is, we're not. Maya stumbled over the words, feeling her face heat. Your father and I are working together, that's all. Sure, Lucia's expression was too knowing for 16. That's why you're holding hands. Maya looked down, realized she was indeed holding James's hand, their fingers interlaced on the seat between them. She couldn't remember when it happened. James didn't let go. Lucia, he said quietly, Maya gave me her last dollar when I had nothing. She saved my life. Whatever you think you see here, whatever this becomes, it started with her choosing mercy over survival. That matters. I know, Lucia said. That's the only reason I'm not completely freaked out that my homeless dad has a homeless girlfriend. She's not my girlfriend, James said, but his tone lacked conviction. Yet, Sketch added from the driver's seat, and Maya wanted to sink through the floor. But before anyone could respond, Lucia's laptop pinged with an alert. Oh no. What? James leaned over. Mom's moving money. Big transfers. Offshore accounts. Lucia's face had gone white. She's liquidating everything, preparing to run, or... She looked up, terrified. Or she's hiring someone. Hiring who? Maya asked. Someone to make problems disappear, Sketch said grimly. I've seen this before. People with Victoria's resources, when they feel cornered, they don't surrender. They erase threats. We need to get off the road, James said. She could have people tracking us, waiting to... The SUV appeared out of nowhere, ramming them from behind. Sketch fought the wheel as the Civic fishtailed, tires screaming. The SUV hit them again, harder this time, sending them spinning across 2 lanes. Hold on, Sketch yelled. They hit the guardrail with a scream of metal. The car flipped, rolled, the world becoming a chaos of breaking glass and screaming and the sick crunch of impact. Then, nothing. Maya woke to the smell of gasoline and blood. She was hanging upside down, still strapped into her seatbelt, the car on its roof. Her head throbbed where it had hit the window. Everything hurt. "James?" Her voice came out as a croak. "Here." He was beside her, blood streaming from a cut above his eye. "Lucia?" "I'm okay." Lucia's voice from the back, shaky but present. "I think my arm's broken, but I'm okay." "Sketch?" No answer. Maya twisted, saw the driver's seat, saw Sketch slumped forward, not moving, blood pooling beneath him. "Oh God, we need to get out." James was already working his seatbelt release. "The SUV, they'll be coming back. They won't leave witnesses." He was right. Through the shattered windshield, Maya could see the SUV backing up, preparing for another pass, to finish the job. James got his belt undone, dropped hard to the car's roof, scrambled to help Maya. "Come on, move." They got Maya out, then Lucia, her left arm hanging wrong, but her face set with determination. James went back for Sketch. "He's not breathing," James said, voice breaking. "I can't. There's too much blood. I can't move him without making it worse." "We have to leave him," Lucia said, even though tears streamed down her face. "Dad, we have to go now." The SUV was getting closer. James looked at Sketch, this man who'd helped them, who'd believed in them, who'd said yes when he could have said no, and something in his face fractured completely. "I'm sorry," he whispered. Then he grabbed Maya and Lucia, and they ran. Into the woods beside the highway, into darkness, branches tearing at their clothes and skin. Behind them, the SUV screeched to a stop. Doors opened, voices shouted orders. "Keep moving," James gasped. "Don't stop, don't look back." They didn't. They ran until their lungs burned, until their legs gave out, until they collapsed in a ravine 2 miles from the crash site, covered in blood and mud, and the knowledge that someone had just died trying to help them. "Sketch," Maya sobbed. "He's dead because of us." "He's dead because of Victoria," James said, his voice like iron, "and she's going to pay for it. For him, for your father, for everyone she's hurt." "With what?" Lucia held up her shattered laptop. "All my backups were on here, the evidence, the files, everything's destroyed." Maya felt hope die in her chest. They'd lost. Sketch was dead. The evidence was gone. They were hurt and hunted and... "Not everything," James said. They looked at him. "Before I disappeared, I made one final backup. Physical documents, thumb drives, original files. I hid them somewhere Victoria would never think to look." He met Maya's eyes. "Your father's old storage unit, the one he rented before he died. The one Victoria doesn't know about because he rented it under his mother's maiden name." "How do you know about that?" Maya breathed. "Because I found it while investigating. Found a rental agreement in Robert's old office files, paid up for 10 years in advance. He was collecting evidence even then." James's smile was grim. "I added my own evidence to his. Everything Victoria did, everything I found, it's all there." "Where?" Lucia asked. "Queens, storage facility near the airport." He looked at his daughter, at Maya, at the state they were all in, bloody, broken, barely alive. "But we can't go now. We need time to recover, plan, figure out how to get there without Victoria's people finding us." "I know a place," Maya said quietly. They looked at her. "Sacred Heart Shelter. Father Paulo. He'll help us, hide us, give us time." "Victoria might know about Father Paulo," James said, "might be watching. Then we'll be careful. But James, we're hurt. Lucia needs a doctor. We need supplies. We need..." Maya's voice broke. "We need to mourn Sketch properly. Give him that much dignity." James closed his eyes. "Okay, Father Paulo. But we move carefully. And we move now, before they realize we survived and come looking." They helped each other up, 3 broken people who just survived murder and lost a friend, and started the long walk back to the city.
Behind them, the crash site burned. And in Manhattan, Victoria received the news that 3 bodies had been found in the wreckage, all burned beyond recognition. She smiled. The problem was solved. James Hartwell was finally, truly dead. She had no idea that the bodies were decoys planted by Sketch's final posthumous act of heroism. 3 homeless people he'd befriended, who donated their bodies to science but died before the paperwork cleared, bodies he'd arranged to be in his car just in case. Sketch had been many things, but most importantly, he'd been prepared. And his final gift to the people he died protecting was the gift of invisibility. Victoria thought they were dead, which meant for the first time in weeks, they had the advantage. They just had to survive long enough to use it. 3 days later, Sacred Heart Shelter. Father Paulo cleaned Lucia's arm with careful hands while Maya boiled water for tea and James paced like a caged animal. They'd been hiding in the shelter's basement for 72 hours, healing, planning, waiting for the right moment. "Your mother announced your death on the news this morning," Father Paulo told Lucia gently. "Very touching eulogy. Talked about how much she loved you, how devastated she was." "I bet she cried real tears, too," Lucia said bitterly. "She's good at that, performing grief." "The funeral is tomorrow, public memorial, all the corporate elite attending. It's being broadcast live. She's made you into a symbol of her loss, of James's instability." James stopped pacing. "She's using our deaths to solidify her position." "Exactly. The board voted this morning, made her CEO permanent, standing ovation. Victoria Ashford is now the uncontested head of Hartwell Industries." "So she's won," Maya said quietly. "No." James's voice was steel. "She thinks she's won. But we have one advantage. She believes we're dead, which means she stopped looking, stopped preparing, let her guard down." "What are you suggesting?" Father Paulo asked. "We resurrect." James turned to face them all, and his expression was fierce, determined. "Tomorrow at the funeral, in front of all those witnesses, all those cameras, we rise from the dead and bring everything we have, evidence, testimony, truth. We destroy her in public, in real time, where she can't spin it or bury it or make it disappear." "That's insane," Lucia said. "She'll have security, people who'll..." "People who'll what? Kill us in front of 1,000 witnesses and live cameras?" James shook his head. "No, public is our only safety. The moment we step into that spotlight, Victoria loses the ability to make us disappear quietly." Maya saw the logic, even as her stomach twisted with fear. "And the evidence, the storage unit in Queens? I retrieved it last night, while you were sleeping." James pulled out a worn backpack. "Everything's here. Robert's files, my investigation, bank records, emails, testimony from witnesses, enough to put Victoria away for 20 years. "You went alone," Maya's voice rose. "James, that was necessary. Someone had to take the risk, and I wasn't going to put either of you in more danger." "We're already in danger," Lucia snapped. "We've been in danger since the moment Mom decided she cared more about power than people. You don't get to protect us by excluding us." Father Paulo made a soft sound of approval. "She's right, James. This isn't about you being the hero. It's about all of you standing together, about Maya getting justice for her father, about Lucia getting her mother held accountable, about Sketch's death meaning something." James looked at Maya, his gray eyes searching. "You don't have to do this. You could walk away now. Start over somewhere safe. I'd understand." Maya thought about her father, about his last investigation, his last attempt to expose corruption, about how he died trying to protect people he'd never met in a country halfway around the world. She thought about Marcus, about the betrayal, about 6 months of being invisible.
She thought about the dollar she'd given a stranger, about mercy and grace and the unexpected ways kindness could transform everything. "I'm in," she said, "for my father, for Sketch, for all of us." Lucia nodded. "I'm in too." Father Paulo smiled. "Then let's plan a resurrection." Victoria stood in her bathroom, practicing her funeral speech in the mirror. She needed to look devastated but composed, broken but strong, a mother grieving her only child while also being a leader maintaining control. Her phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Everything set for tomorrow, security in place, no surprises." Good. The funeral would be perfect. After tomorrow, no one would question her position. No one would doubt her story. James's instability, his mental breakdown, his tragic death taking their daughter with him. It was almost poetic.
She thought about James, about how much she'd loved him once, before his integrity became an obstacle, before his ethics made him weak. She'd offered him everything, power without conscience, profit without guilt. But he'd chosen morality instead. So she'd taken morality from him, made him look like a criminal, made him run, made him disappear. And now he was dead. Victoria should feel triumphant. Instead, she just felt empty. She poured herself a scotch, drank it too fast, poured another. Tomorrow, she'd bury her daughter and her ex-husband. Tomorrow, she'd cry genuine tears for the loss of what they could have been if only James had been willing to compromise his precious principles. Tomorrow, she'd win. But tonight, alone in her penthouse with her reflection and her guilt, Victoria Ashford admitted something she'd never say aloud. She missed him. Missed the man who'd seen her completely and loved her anyway. The man she'd destroyed because he wouldn't let her be the person she needed to be. "I'm sorry," she whispered to the empty room, to the ghost of James, to the daughter she'd never really known. "I'm sorry I couldn't be what you needed me to be." But sorry didn't change anything. Tomorrow, she'd bury her regrets with her family, and she'd move forward alone. The funeral, 2 p.m. The cathedral was packed with Manhattan's elite. CEOs, politicians, socialites, everyone who mattered came to pay respects to Victoria's tragedy. The casket sat at the front, closed because the bodies were too damaged to view. An orchestra played somber music. Flowers covered every surface. Victoria stood at the podium in black Chanel, her face pale and perfect, tears gleaming on her cheeks. The cameras loved her. The audience loved her. She was grief incarnate. "My daughter Lucia was the light of my life," she said, voice breaking beautifully. "And James, despite our differences, despite everything that happened between us, was the man I loved most in this world. Losing them both is—" She paused, let the silence build. "Unbearable." In the back of the cathedral, 3 figures entered quietly. A man in a worn suit, a teenage girl with her arm in a sling, a woman with careful hands and sad eyes. James Hartwell, Lucia Hartwell, Maya Chen. Dead, but not dead. Resurrected. "Losing them has taught me," Victoria continued. And then she saw them. Her face went white. The microphone fell from her hand with a shriek of feedback. The entire cathedral turned to look. "Hi, Mom," Lucia said, her voice carrying in the sudden silence. "Surprise! We're not dead." Chaos erupted, gasps, shouts, people rising from pews. But James was already moving toward the podium, Maya at his side, Lucia following. Security guards tried to intervene, but the cameras were rolling, the moment was live, and there was nowhere for Victoria to hide. "Hello, Victoria," James said when he reached her. "We need to talk about Robert Chen, and about the evidence you thought died with us." Victoria's mask finally shattered.
"You're supposed to be dead." "I was, for about 3 weeks. It's very freeing, actually, being dead. No accounts to freeze, no reputation to protect, no reason not to tell the truth." He pulled out a thumb drive, held it up for the cameras. "This contains evidence of conspiracy, murder, fraud, and corruption spanning 5 years. Evidence collected by Robert Chen before his death, continued by me, and preserved by my daughter." He looked at Lucia with pride. "My brilliant daughter, who you underestimated so completely." "You have nothing," Victoria hissed. "That's fake. You can't prove." "We can prove everything," Maya said, stepping forward. "Robert Chen was my father. You had him killed because he was going to expose your use of child labor and unsafe working conditions at the Bronson Industries merger. Then you systematically destroyed my life to ensure I couldn't continue his work. That's a lie. You used Marcus Tang to get close to me, to embezzle from my gallery, to make sure I was too broken and desperate to be a threat." Maya's voice was steel. "Well, I'm not broken anymore, and I'm definitely a threat." Father Paulo had moved to the cathedral's tech booth. At his signal, the evidence began playing on the screens throughout the building. Emails, bank records, photos, testimony, all of it. Everything Victoria had done, everything she'd hidden, laid bare for the world to see. "No," Victoria whispered. "No, you can't." "It's done," James said. "The SEC received copies an hour ago. So did the FBI, the DOJ, every major news outlet. You can't bury this, Victoria. You can't make it disappear. It's over." Victoria looked at the screens, at the evidence, at the faces of the 1,000 witnesses watching her empire collapse in real time. She looked at Marcus Tang, standing near the door, his face sick with guilt. At the security guards who were now talking into radios, receiving orders to detain her, not the intruders. She looked at James and saw not the man she'd loved, but the man she'd underestimated. And she looked at Lucia, her daughter, her only child, and saw nothing but cold justice in those gray eyes. "You did this," Victoria said to Lucia. "You betrayed me." "No, Mom." Lucia's voice was gentle, sad. "You betrayed yourself. I just made sure the world knew it." The FBI agents entered the cathedral as Victoria's legs gave out. She collapsed, and for once her tears were real. Tears of loss, of defeat, of the final understanding that she'd destroyed everything that mattered while chasing things that didn't. They arrested her there at her own funeral, in front of cameras and witnesses and the daughter she'd never really known. And as they led her away in handcuffs, Victoria looked back once at James. "I loved you," she said. "I really did." "I know," James replied, "but not enough. Not enough to choose him over power. Not enough to be the person he'd needed. Not enough to avoid becoming the villain of her own story." Victoria was gone, and in the silence she left behind, 3 people who'd been dead stood at the front of a cathedral and felt something like resurrection bloom in their chests. It wasn't over. There would be trials, testimony, years of legal battles. But for now, in this moment, they'd won. Justice had been served, and mercy had been redeemed. 6 months later, Chan Studios occupied a real gallery space now, in Soho, with actual paying clients and growing revenue. Maya stood in front of her latest commission, a reproduction of Hokusai's Great Wave, and felt something like peace settle over her. "It's beautiful," James said from the doorway. Maya turned, smiled. He looked different now, healthy, confident, wearing a suit that actually fit. Back to being James Hartwell, former CEO, current consultant and public speaker on corporate ethics and accountability. He'd rebuilt his reputation from the ashes, turned his scandal into a platform for change. "How was the congressional hearing?" Maya asked. "Exhausting. They want new legislation on corporate transparency. using what happened with Victoria as a case study. He moved into the gallery, hands in his pockets. I told them about your father, about what he tried to do. They're naming the bill after him. Maya's throat tightened. The Robert Chin Act? The Chin-Hartwell Corporate Ethics Act. Your father's sacrifice, my testimony. Legacy work. He would have liked that. He would have been proud of you. James moved closer, studied the painting. You're thriving, Maya. This gallery, your art, everything you've rebuilt. It's remarkable. I had help. You and Lucia invested in me when no one else would. You invested in me first, with $1 and trust and mercy when I had nothing. His eyes met hers. There was something in his voice, something that Maya's heart kicked. They'd been dancing around this for months, the connection between them, the way their hands found each other automatically, the way James looked at her like she was the only real thing in a world of illusions. James, she started, but he was already speaking. I know the timing is terrible. I know we've both been through hell. I know this is probably too soon and definitely complicated, but... He took her hands. Maya Chen, you saved my life with your last $1. Let me spend the rest of mine trying to deserve that grace. You don't have to earn it, Maya said softly. Grace isn't transactional. Then let me anyway. He smiled. Not because I have to, because I want to. Because you're the best person I've ever known, and I'd be an idiot to let you go. Maya thought about her father, about Sketch, about all the people who'd sacrificed for justice, mercy, and the belief that the world could be better. She thought about her last $1, about the choice to give when she had nothing, about how that single act had changed everything. Okay, she said. Yes, let's see where this goes. James kissed her there in the gallery, surrounded by reproductions of beautiful things, and Maya felt something shift in her chest, not breaking, not even healing, transforming, becoming something new and wild and full of possibility. When they pulled apart, Lucia was standing in the doorway, grinning. Finally, I've been waiting for you two to figure this out for months. You knew? Maya asked. Everyone knew. You're both terrible at hiding it. Lucia came in, her arm finally healed, her face bright with mischief. So, what's this mean? Maya's my stepmom now? Let's start with girlfriend, Maya said, laughing. We'll work up to stepmom. Fair enough. Hey, I got accepted to Columbia, art history program. Thought I might intern here during summers if you're hiring. Always, Maya said, and meant it. They stood there, the three of them, bound together by tragedy and trust and the strange alchemy of mercy, and looked at the future they'd built from the wreckage of the past.
Outside, the city moved and breathed and continued, full of people who were invisible until someone chose to see them, full of dollars waiting to be shared, full of moments where grace could change everything. Victoria was in prison, serving 20 years for conspiracy, manslaughter, and fraud. She'd lost everything, her company, her freedom, her daughter's love. But sometimes, late at night in her cell, she thought about James and Maya and wondered if maybe, in some alternate version of her life, she could have been the hero of this story instead of the villain. But she'd made her choices, and choices had consequences. Marcus Tang had testified against Victoria in exchange for immunity. He worked security now at a women's shelter, trying to protect the vulnerable instead of enabling the powerful. He'd never spoken to Maya again, knew better than to ask for forgiveness. But sometimes he saw her name in articles about the gallery, about her success, and felt something like pride mixed with regret. Father Paulo continued his work at Sacred Heart, ministering to the invisible, the forgotten, the thrown away. He'd presided over a small, private memorial for Sketch in the shelter's chapel, attended by 50 homeless people who'd known Derek Morrison as a friend, an artist, and a hero. They'd covered his grave in charcoal drawings, gifts from the community he'd served. And every morning, Maya put $1 in the shelter's donation box.
Not because she had to, not because she expected anything in return, but because she remembered what that dollar had bought. Not food, not coffee, not survival, but grace, connection, transformation, the ability to see someone truly, completely, in their darkest moment and choose mercy over self-preservation. That's what the dollar had really purchased, and it was worth everything.